Very clearly there's a play here for education, right? Think about the way for teachers, instructors to start customizing visual aids and bring these variability of hyper personalization that AI already brought.
Marketing, personalization in higher education. Exactly.
Welcome to the Generation AI podcast. I'm JC Bonilla and joined by my co-host Ardis Kadiu. And in this podcast, we demystify artificial intelligence in the world of higher education. Ardis, how are we doing?
Doing great, JC. Really excited. At the time that we're recording this, we're about to fly to ASU GSV. By the time this drops, we'll probably be at we're at ASU GSV, the conference in San Diego, and really looking forward to seeing Element is going to have a huge presence there, and really looking forward to seeing a lot of AI, the AI show there, and as well as a lot of folks from Element as well.
Ardis is carrying a little bit of hesitation in his voice. Everybody, this man and the product engineering team is unveiling a gigantic milestone for all things AI in higher education. So we're very excited that there's going to be new drops. I don't know if we want to keep it a little quiet here, Ardis, but it's been an incredible amount of work and proud of the work you and the team are doing behind the scenes. So that's why you sound a little tired, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I'm ready. I'm ready to go. Ready to go.
Well, Ardis, not only you're basically preparing for a big reveal, but all our peers in AI have done, as usual, incredible drops over the past 2 weeks. We really want to talk about the ones that we think is the biggest one. We're going to spend a lot of time on imaging, but before we get there, specifically the ChatGPT imaging model, we wanted to speak about certain drops. We have about a list of 6 to 10, and they're all incredible. They all deserve a 1 hour show. So in 10 minutes, let's try to pack as many updates that we're excited about so that we can lead our conversation on all things imaging. So from the drops that we have here, Ardis, which one are you the most excited about?
So this episode is really exciting because we're kind of doing a catch up in terms of the news, and we're going to try to extrapolate a little bit of what's happening or what are some of the most exciting things that are happening in the AI. But we'll focus the bulk of the episode. We're going to focus on ChatGPT image generation model that they dropped. I think it's been about 7 days or so right now that has dropped, and it's kind of taken the internet by storm. It is one of the most, I would say, ChatGPT moments or GPT-3 moments when ChatGPT got announced to the world. It feels that way as well with this new model, with this new image generation that folks are doing a lot of things. So we'll leave that for the main episode or the main part of the episode, the bulk of the episode, what that means or what it is. But we also wanted to kind of spend about a few minutes to talk about the different advances that have happened over the past couple of weeks that we haven't been able to kind of talk about. One of the big ones, it's for me at least, is, well, there's a lot of them, but we're gonna go in order here. If we're gonna talk about model drops, at the same time that image generation dropped, Gemini 2.5 from Google also dropped, and it is Google's Gemini 2.5 Pro Advanced. It is one of the most, I would say, the most advanced model right now. It is a reasoning and thinking model. It's actually broken all of the records in terms of the chatbot arena, like how great it is, what the reasoning capabilities are. 1 million tokens as the context window, so really, really large. It's really, really, really good at coding, so amazing at coding. And this is perhaps one of the kind of crown achievements of Google so far in terms of the models that he has put out there. So that's really exciting. And folks that are trying it as part of coding, as part of kind of building applications, as part of their reasoning, they are receiving amazing results as part of this model so far. So that's what's exciting. But obviously it was overshadowed by
Exactly. By what we're going to be talking about.
Exactly.
Artists, for me, outside the model drops, kind of model frontier, and I agree that Google's crown jewel probably right now is Gemini 2.5. But I thought that Anthropic did something really interesting with their drop of Model Context Protocol, MCP. Someone who comes from engineering, interoperability, and kind of this standardization of requirements, it's big. So for me, this is the moment VHS, Betamax, I don't know, whatever, CD ROMs, like all that type of different ways in which you consume media, and all of a sudden, like, Blu-ray or something like that comes, it's like, I'm going to start producing that way. That's that parallel, right? MCP, it would allow an AI model or developer to basically do a bit of plug them into real-time data, APIs, external tools in a more systematic way. One of the things that I find MCP to be excited about is that it could provide simplified integration framework for us vendors, for producers and innovators in AI that allows our AI to be, interoperable as a workflow engine. So I was excited about that, and it was probably one of the fun things that Anthropic did in the past 2 weeks as well.
Yeah, this is so. I mean, if you're not technical, like this is gets a little bit more technical. But I think about this is a new standard. So Anthropic published this standard called the Model Context Protocol, or short for MCP. And essentially, think about it as the USB for AI models or for AI agents, right? So USB is a standard, and then every laptop maker has a USB connector that you can plug anything into. So you have a drive and you can plug anything into. So USB is a connector for communication, as a standard, and then you implement that standard. So what's happening is that the standard is now being adopted not just by Anthropic or not just by Claude, but also OpenAI came out and said ChatGPT now is going to support the MCP standard, and a lot of other agent platforms are working to support that standard as well. And just like you said, JC, what that means is that MCP provides a standard, but a data source or an application, for example, take Zapier. They implement rather than you calling their APIs, they implement a MCP endpoint or a server, and then now your AI agent or chatbot can connect to that endpoint in a natural language to pull information and to ask it for different things. So this MCP is really the underlying technology that can open up, just like with APIs in the past, this can open up the ability for these agents to connect to a lot of different data sources. And here in Element, we're actually working and then we're incorporating that as part of our AI agents in here, so we can reach out in different platforms and we can pull content. So that's really, really exciting for us because it gives us a common language to basically connect with legacy systems or connect with other systems that we don't have to use their APIs through.
Hey, Ardis, two worthy nominations before we go into the educational realm of all things AI. But DeepSeek launched version 3, and it's just always good to keep on talking about how the open source momentum continues to push forward. Everybody remember DeepSeek dropping a few months back or weeks back, and rethinking how computational delivery, in this case, a more efficient way to produce and train models, and using open source. So DeepSeek launches V3 and continues to be very, very impressive. The other thing I wanted to mention, and kind of group them and let you react, it's really important to mention this whole thing of vibe coding. I'm excited that Andrej Karpathy introduced it. Andrej Karpathy is from Eureka Labs, big AI figure. But this idea of using voice or the outcome as coding, in other words, natural language processing is the new keyboard. And it's being mentioned so much across professionals, say vibe coding, and now you have leaders and many CEOs like you, Ardis, coming and say training or coding may not be required anymore. So it's a really interesting conversation starter about coding not dying per se, but the way how coding is generated, the iterative process of how software assets can be produced. So anything on these two, Ardis?
I'm not sure how we connected the vibe coding with the open source
They,
models,
they,
but
they don't connect. They just basically worthy mentions.
Yeah. I wanna kind of provide a little more context around the open source models and kind of the progression there, which is really, really important. So what we've seen recently is the kind of this advancement of open source models, open weights. Actually, it's not necessarily open source; they're open weights. So this, you can use it on your own. You can also use it kind of in devices. Google has made a big push with it. They introduced Gemma 3, which is their small models. Actually, OpenAI now has come to the table and realized and said, hey, we also want to provide open source and get back to our roots, to the open opportunity. They haven't launched any open weights models until GPT-2 or 2.5, I believe. So Sam just announced that this week that they're going to release, and it could be as early as next week, or it can be maybe a couple of weeks from now, but a model from OpenAI that is open weights as well, that it can be used externally. And what that means is that now organizations can kind of use those models and can embed them as part of their products roadmaps. The other one is we talked about very briefly on Llama. Llama 4 is expected to come out now in the next couple of weeks, definitely in April. And Llama 4 kind of pushes the frontier even more on the open weights with multimodal, very large context windows from what we know. And that again, so pushes the thing forward. So what we're seeing, JC, is a kind of progression or a fast development on the capabilities of models to not to be smarter, to be multimodal, to produce to be able to produce code that is amazing, and tying that back to your vibe coding tools that are give you
You
the
tied it,
ability
huh?
for so if you have these models that are really, really good at coding and understanding and reasoning, and the cost of them goes down, now you have tools like Lovable or Bolt AI. They can go in and they can use, and they can spend 2 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever, however long it takes to iterate through these problems and create full blown applications. And that's where kind of the vibe coding becomes really possible, because the models are getting cheaper. The smarts are getting really high. And now you no longer need to provide context that is very structured, or instructions that are very structured, or prompting. You can just, by vibing, you can kind of build stuff, because the models are smart enough, and these agents are smart enough to kind of do that work and produce that work for you. So that's kind of where the vibe coding, of course, a lot of folks now, we're moving into vibe marketing with, because of the new model that we're going to talk about today, or vibe, designing, or whatever you want to call it. But this idea of you're interacting with the agents or with your chatbots, and you're producing something that is pretty complete, but it's all through kind of this communication back and forth. Oh, I like this, I don't like that, not very structured. So I wanted to perhaps kind of get to that. And of course, one of the things that's really important is, like, what does that mean for folks? What does that mean for a marketer? What does that mean for someone and an organization? Like, they need to learn these tools because they can produce real work and real outcomes. And one of the things that we wanted to talk about, one that's been dropped, is that OpenAI has released, or they have built their OpenAI Academy, right? So this is an educational initiative that is pushed by OpenAI, and they have prompting videos in there. They have, they can, how to work with Sora, for example, how to work with their image generators, how to, prompting for K through 12, for teaching K through 12, prompting for higher education in the classroom, how can students work with it. So they have put together academy.openai.com. So that's again, as these models get better, AI literacy is now becoming a must. And you're seeing more and more of these labs producing educational content that is really important. It's really important to everybody in any organization or in higher education. So now we have so much content out there, and this is a good one. One of the leaders from Coursera, the VP of product from Coursera, moved, and they're the ones leading this initiative at OpenAI. So they have the know-how of how to do courses and how to kind of build a learning platform.
Just a quick connection to all things training, learning. Claude for Education also dropped, and it's kind of that module in or basically all things Claude Anthropic for us a learning mode. And Claude is not only giving answers, but kind of helping teachers and students teach about it. And I think there is going to be a version of that. Even ourselves, right? We're speaking of how our academies look like and starting to create new content. So with the evolution of AI with model frontier drops and whatnot, many of the educational upscaling, it's kind of the lagging factor. And I think that's where we're at.
Yeah, so Claude for Education is a good one. Before you get there, so that's an interesting one, because if you think about, perhaps this is a really big one for higher education. You have OpenAI for education, but what Claude is doing is taking a little bit of a different approach, where now it's meant to be given to students, and rather than providing answers, they're baking in this idea that it needs to be more of a follow Socratic method, where it tells the student how to learn, right? It teaches them how to learn, and it kind of guides them through. So Claude isn't just giving answers, really, it's teaching students how to think. And that's the pushback that we've been getting, for the past now couple of years from academia, and we're getting from pedagogy, is like, hey, you're not really teaching students, you're actually just, helping them cheat because you're providing answers, this one-shot answers. Well, that's what Claude for Education is trying to do. So a version of Claude that can be adopted, and schools are adopting, and higher education it's available. It was released and it's available, and it provides the students that kind of transformative, pedagogy driven learning mode, kind of step-by-step problem solving approach.
That's right. So, artists, let's switch to our second part of the show today. In our second segment, we want to do a shift of another drop. But in this case, we're going from the text world to the visual frontier. And as you mentioned, this drop from ChatGPT or OpenAI, an image generation package on GPT-4o, suck the energy out of so many of the things that we just discussed, specifically Google's best performing frontier model. And all of us are talking about what does it mean right now to have this capability and the significant leap in AI capabilities when all things graphics, imaging. And the way we like to have this conversation, right? Let's just talk about what does this look like technically. Let's give a technical overview, but then push us to the real world applications and how it starts shifting practices that since we started this show, I'd say almost, 2 years ago? No, a year ago, a year and a half ago.
A
My
year
gosh,
ago, yeah.
this is episode 71, right? So we've been talking about how this is going to be changing the creative industries and all those type of things. Today, I see it for the first time. I kind of saw it how it could happen, but now for me, this is that moment. So can we talk about what does it mean, and let's kind of give a technical overview here. Ardis, this is kind of more your domain. Go for it.
Yeah, of course. This is really exciting. So what we saw a few months ago was, or with the introduction of GPT-4o, O stands for Omni, and it's essentially multimodal. So we saw the ability for the model to understand input that was both text, video, audio, and also images, and actually reason through it and understand it. But it wasn't able to produce that. So it produced audio in some cases. It produced text, but images, it still used
The DALI framework.
the alt DALI, exactly.
Yeah.
So it called a different model to produce the image. It wrote a prompt. However, what this means is now image generation is native to GPT-4o. So it's actually producing images the same way that it's producing text. So it's producing different modalities. It's the same concept, and it can represent that concept in an image. It can represent it in text. It can represent it in audio. So it's kind of one big space. and just the artifact is images. What's really cool about this, JC, is that it essentially, if you think about text, it produces one word after another after another. The same mechanism is happening here. It's like this idea of an auto-regressive model architecture, which really predicts the next component or the next. And when you see how this produces it, it produces like different pixel. It produces it. It goes like line by line or like pixel by pixel, so to speak, just like it's predicting the next word and the next word and the next word. It understands that. One of the things that we're learning right now from these models is it's not very simple, right? They actually have the concept of the end goal in mind, and that's how things are being produced. So it's not like it's just random word or pixel after pixel, but it has concepts, it produces that, and then that's kind of the architecture, which it's amazing because the concept, like you no longer are kind of subject to this diffusion models that we had before, right? It's now, it keeps that in mind, and it treats every pixel as part of the larger context that it understands. So then it can make modifications, small modifications to specific areas of the image. It can change the style. It can be very photorealistic. It can be very cartoonish. So that's kind of the ability for this new thing, new ability. So it's not just generating it at one shot.
And to give everybody a bit of a picture of what this looks like outside the technical domain, if you did image generation before, you probably experienced the following. You send the prompt. What's happening behind the scenes, probably in OpenAI, it was sending it to another, it was using a service to go to DALL-E, it comes back. And every time you prompted, you got a different image. So it was very difficult and in a way frustrating because there was no replicability and it felt like I cannot build from it. So now with these new models, it's more of a sketch. So what does that mean? My eyes were not perfect. So let me go back and fix the sketch and make your eyes thicker, or like think about the creative process of a sketch and becoming a masterpiece. That's basically what is happening here. Mathematically speaking, is this idea that what you have is a model that allows you to remember the prior state to come and start building on the next one. And that improvement allows you to do photorealism, style adaptation, remove these things from the visual, and that type of very detailed prompting.
Yeah. JC, if you the way that I've thought about this is, and then maybe the audience can kind of connect with it as well. Like, we're pretty used to text and having the
Exactly.
model produce a piece of text, and then we can kind of continue the conversation and say, okay, can you just add this now to this text? Can you make it friendlier? Can you make it this? Can you change the first paragraph to do this? Well, it's the same exact thing for images as well, because the images, remember, it's just a representation of like pixels and kind of this digital representation underneath that the model really understands the connection between all of those things together and the concept. So it keeps everything. And so if you're thinking it's like, well, what can I do? It's the same exact thing. Anything that you can do with the text in order to modify and to prompt it to change the first paragraph, change the last paragraph, change the style. Now, here's another paragraph, or here's another piece of text. Can you combine them together? Can you take the style from this one and add it to this one? You can do all of those pieces now with images as well, right? And it's really good at representing text as text information in there, whereas before, text information was sometimes like words and things like that were really, really bad. Now you're able to represent and to have those in the images. Text is really, really good in images now.
There's this aspect of incremental creative gains, and before we didn't have that. So when, to your example, I have a graphic and now, I don't know, make it smoother, whatever that means, you're speaking to it, it would totally give you a smooth graph or a visual, but it's different, right? Different to where you start from. So that incremental buildup is super important. Ardis, the fascination with Studio Ghibli here, what's up with that? So a lot of the showcases, it's let me do this, but then, because now you have kind of this creative buildup and I can showcase a picture and create a whole comedy or comics. but the Studio Ghibli affinity to showcase it that way, it's been so interesting. So a lot of the practitioners just bringing Japanese vibes on and the showcases.
Yeah, yeah. Studio Ghibli is it's kind of it's obviously it's a studio and anime studio, and they have their own unique style of representation. Their images look very unique, right? In terms of like you understand what they are. So you can ask the model to kind of transform the style of any image or any photo and kind of convert you into a Studio Ghibli version of that style or of their photo, which is incredible because essentially what ended up happening in the internet, if you've been living under a rock, maybe you haven't seen it, but it's everywhere. It's in all the social channels, social media. Folks have changed their images, but Studio Ghibli was kind of that meme that kind of caught fire, and essentially the OpenAI servers and GPUs were on fire, so to speak, because everybody was trying to represent their images in the Studio Ghibli version. So, hey, I'm really, really excited. I'm really happy that that was that's the meme that kind of caught fire because it's kind of friendly. It's nice, cute.
Artist, can I give you an example of how these technical details kind of unfold? And this is going to be what I want everybody to understand is how, in my case, I did a process of embedding language and imagery, right? So my first prompt or request is, this is me, right? JC Bonilla. So give me a graphic of me. By the way, it didn't get it right, but the details of this persona, it embeds some Latin features and whatnot. It gave me hair and beard, but it gave me the glasses and whatnot. So what I want to understand is now this is me. I hope it remembers it. So because now I'm gonna bring this new me into a context that it's searchable and it's indexable. So our show, Generation AI, and I didn't say who Ardis was. So it creates a meme, very interesting. And then I said, now put JC Bonilla with Ardis Kadiu in the Generation AI podcast using a Rogan style podcast studio vibe. And it generates that. It remembered the me, like pixel by pixel, and then it puts you, artist, as the bald man. I don't know why. So we have a bald man and someone with beard. So if anything, my attributes in this visual belong more to you and the lack of her. So
Right,
anyway, it's
right.
hilarious. But the details, the aspect of, it put water, it put the type of mic. I connected the mic to a little plug-in on the table, all the backdrop, bringing the Generation AI kind of brand, incredible detailed, and this basically seamless blending of language and imagery was fascinating. So interesting example, artist, you look fantastic bald, my friend.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it, JC. Um, well, I don't think my head is that round, so I don't know. I'm gonna look weird bald, so maybe.
Well, I don't think in your genes. I've seen your family. I don't think you have that. You have to worry about that. It's not in your genes, brother.
Hey, I do have a couple of examples. Let's take a look at them. I think this is an interesting one. So, and I think these were examples that the folks at OpenAI kind of posted in terms of the representation. So you can turn any image into an anime image. We talked about Studio Ghibli as a style, right, which is a special style of anime, but you can turn it into any picture into an anime, and it looks really, really good, by the way. I first used it and tried with Muppets, and I took a picture of, we were actually on a cruise, and Scarlett was sitting on one of the windows, and there's reflections on the glass. So I took a picture of her, and I told him to kind of transform it into an anime, into a Muppet, and it did that. It was actually really, really cool, and it left everything else the same though, like the real people and everything. It's just transformed that one person. So you can do the anime now, styles or Muppet styles. Here's another one. This is
Restoration.
this is somebody doing a drawing, and they just did a pencil drawing, and they said, "Hey, just turn this into filled-in anime style," and it essentially filled in all the colors, and it kind of filled in all the details of that painting in here. Here's another one, JC. It's like Bengaluru people and objects. So it made kind of this images that are pretty cool.
It's
kind
a
of
souvenir. It's
collectible
like a souvenir
images.
box. Oh, wait. That's very interesting.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
souvenir
yeah,
box, and
yeah.
what you see on the first one is inside is an, I guess, icon from Bangalore, but then
Yeah, yeah, that's a style. That's a style. Bangalore.
it moves to other representations. The Kia. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And then here's another one where it actually, if something is out of focus, it sharpened the photo and made it,
Crisp. Yeah.
really, really crisp. Yeah, so the photo is actually blurry and out of focus completely, and it kind of changed that. Here's another one. This is actually one of my favorites. Sometimes you're drawing a doodle or a sketch in just a notebook, and it turned this sketch into a YouTube kind of poster, where the person drew somebody hitting a baseball with a fire behind it, and you kind of describe the baseball and the fire and the text that goes behind it. You can describe trees and things like that just by writing it. And it actually converted that, which is amazing, right? It converted that into that.
And the quality from a marketing point of view and a communications point of view, the quality of this ad from the sketch, incredible,
Yeah,
incredible. This
incredible, right?
this would have been a $5,000 job by a graphic designer.
Exactly, exactly. It's like, hey, this is what I want. Let me sketch it out for you in a notebook, and coming to a finished product, incredible, right? So that's chicken scratch. Here's one where it can do a kind of a 4-panel cartoon, right? Story. And this is an interesting one. A person goes to Starbucks and it has Christina with a K. It says in here, like the text is there, and then the barista gives it, and it's like, here you go. And the third image, it shows the cup. It says Christina with a K as the last name, so it's the whole thing. So it's just pretty cool. So if you want to do this kind of storyboarding or cartoons, it's pretty interesting.
The reason why that is interesting is that in the prior ages, right, it will not hold the comic, the cartoon, the book consistent, right? Because it would, every time it generates an image is random. So you're like, what the hell is this, right? So there's no seamless narrative, visual narrative. Now, oh my gosh, the this is the for me one of the biggest things that you have imagery continuum, and kind of like if you were to say these are the brand style guides on the visuals, keep it. It knows how to do that from its inception. You have an example right now on retail. What is this, artist?
So this person started using ChatGPT image generator to create outfits for upcoming trip, right? So start off with a picture of a jacket that is going to bring in, and it told it, and then ChatGPT did everything else, right? So essentially, you have your wardrobe, or you have pieces in your wardrobe, and it says put outfits together for me based on this pieces that
I'm
I have in
so
my
gonna do that
wardrobe.
for our trip, right?
So just lay it out on your bed and say, this is what I'm bringing. Put the outfits together for me.
Can you imagine red carpet moment? Who dressed you today? Oh,
Mhm.
ChatGPT.
ChatGPT. That's right. It's pretty cool. Here's another one. This is a style, or like an interior designer approach, where basically you can go in and you have a room, and you pull furniture together, or pieces of furniture, individual ones, and you upload like 5, 6, 7 pictures of the different furniture, or the different styles, or the different pieces of for that room. And then you upload and also a picture of the room, and say, just transform this room, or do a design style, or generate an image of this living room redone to add the attached geometric rug, the tables, the lamps, the wall art, and so on and so forth. So there's a description basically that you say, okay, add all these different pieces to this room. And it does an amazing job at actually rendering that. So this is going to be an incredible tool for decorators, interior designers, whatever it is, or event promotion spaces, like where you can now. I can see this. We're like how this can be used for an event like Engage right now. We're doing planning for our signage, and it's like you go into a hotel, or you go into an event space, and you can say, here's the brand, here's the logos, try to incorporate these here for this particular company or for this brand. And you will actually kind of lay out all of that information and all that graphics in a particular space, which is pretty incredible, right? Because very, very quickly you can kind of see what that's going to look like without somebody having to do that in Photoshop or spending a lot of time. Incredible.
So exciting.
The last one here is like just asking if you have a like a whole bunch of images, or if it kind of ask ChatGPT to turn kind of a trip pictures into kind of a sketchbook journal, and if you do that, then that's the last example here, that it does a really, really good job of kind of transforming that into a journal as well.
Awesome. We should try to link these visuals on our show notes so you all can benefit because they're super exciting. So, artists, no doubt that understanding the technology is just the beginning, and that's kind of how we've been talking about here. But these capabilities, and with the demo that you just did or the visuals that you just showed, right, we're starting to see how they apply to different fields. Very clearly there's a play here for education, right? Think about the way to for teachers, instructors to start customizing visual aids and bring this variability of hyper personalization that AI already brought.
Marketing, personalization in higher education, exactly.
But you know, or think about the complex aspect of how do I explain to a 4-year-old quantum computing, right? And then like this require dynamic illustrations and different learning styles. It could be very uplifting. Or I've been struggling with my kids in mathematical pedagogy today because they use math with blocks. I find that very interesting. So there's this understanding that Singaporean math and graphical way of learning. So it's all this is now available. You just show us the whole marketing advertisement potential here. We know that marketers can prototype, and from prototype to actual campaign, it's millions of dollars. From prototype to actual ad, weeks, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You just show us an example where that content goes into production mode, hitting demographics, trends, responsiveness, all the good, pillars of marketing in seconds. That's just basically incredible. Which is the second derivative of this, in my opinion, is entertainment media, right? Storyboarding. I mean, how many times have you seen a storyboard and a concept, right? And then it's crude, it's exciting, but then it leaves the user with how it would be personalized. All of a sudden, that creative experimentation can be used, but it goes into the final product immediately, right?
You're talking about agency storyboarding, or even kind of media production storyboarding, even kind of a sequence of an event, or things like that. Like
All
that's
that,
that's
yeah.
incredible. So you can do storyboarding.
And
Yep.
as you mentioned, right? So if I would like to put, I don't know, this signage on an elevator. We had this conversation this week at work. So how does it look like, and how does it work with the 50 other design components, and how is it? I'm gonna do how is it compliant with our guests with disabilities, right? How would I see it through the lens? I have a little bit of color blindness. How would I see it through my lens? Just think about the creative experimentation and how this goes. The part that I did not see until you showed me that one is the idea of product design. I mean, just my neighbor upstairs, she's a clothing expert, and always when I go pick up my daughter from their play dates, it's so interesting to see her desk artist. No longer that creative mess of like the bulletin board with the sketches and the little fabric like this is an incredible generation automation or acceleration of prototyping and product design. I'm so excited about that. So, artists, what about you? How do you see this impacting and where kind of the work, and where do you see this going?
Yeah. Well, here maybe we can do like I can provide a bunch of examples of how this can be applied, and we can go from there. And of course, you can expand on all of these. So number one, like think about it, filters become experiences. So like this is things like the transformation of styles from one style to another, filters on images, filters on different things like photos, and so on and so forth. And this is something that's really, really exciting. The second one, it's like memes become really easy and better too. You really can make memes out of anything right now, and they can carry a story. So it's a way of communicating information, and memes become really, really interesting. Books and visual storytelling, I don't know, man. Like illustration is really hard for books, kids' books, anything like that. Even slides and presentations. So I'm going to group those two together. It's like books and visual storytelling coming down with children's books, storyboarding, creative kind of iteration. You can kind of see how they can be put together really, really easy. And then when you go down to slides and the presentations, because the model is really good at understanding those concepts, it can produce better placeholder images, or conceptualize images a lot better for slides and presentations. I'm actually producing a lot of that right now, so that's near dear to my heart. You mentioned placeholder, like you mentioned, like your product designers, like placeholder images for web and apps as well. This one is really interesting because in higher education, we use a lot of kind of stock photography as well. Well, guess what? You don't have to use that stock photography, or you can use that stock photography, but you can give it the logo and the colors of your school, and you can say, incorporate the logo and the colors in this image, my school image, and it seems like it's your students in there in that stock photography. So it completely changes how you can adopt and personalize stock photography now to become, unique to your own institution. Movies or remix mediums, it's like this is an area where, again, kind of taking scenes from different famous movies. I've seen this happen over and over again. It's become really, really interesting, where those scenes can be transformed now into different styles, right? You can take a movie like Space Odyssey and then transform it into a Muppet, into a Muppet kind of frame or things like that. Ads now become really possible at scale. So you can personalize ads at scales. Huge. This is huge, man. This is like incredible.
Synthetic
So,
audiences against synthetic ads. I haven't even, and then
right.
the 3,000 variations of an ad. It's just an incredible possibility here.
Exactly, exactly. Because the text can also be in there. Yeah, that can be a whole show. What we're gonna do, JC, is maybe in a different show we can do, or we do a LinkedIn Live where we actually showcase this, like the styles and how we do the essentially like the brand style guide, and how do you transform that into ads, and how they can all work together. We talked about social networking, content creation. Like that's now you don't have to. Not everybody has to use the same stock stuff over and over in here. Again, the biggest part here is now the creative mind, the creatives can finish work. So AI becomes really a creative. It helps the creatives, right? So if you're a creative now, you can do a lot more. You can produce work a lot faster. And really, GPT-4 image generation really doesn't just make these pictures better. It really changes how we can now tell those stories through visuals. I can put market ideas together, build apps, remix culture, and it's really just getting started, man. I mean, I don't know how you feel about it, but this is incredible.
And artists, maybe that's the way I would link it to education and where this is going. And I like to put it this way: this idea of at a scale and whatnot comes to learning at scale. As an academic or someone who has been educating people, I know the concepts, but sometimes I lack the creative companion in my brain that allows me to land these for someone who is a non-native speaker or comes from this, or they have disabilities, or just I just need the basically the punchline to drive inference and statistical terms and whatnot. So educators, researchers, now we have the potential to bring this type of style and unlock learning that it's contextual to the audience and styles and segmentation, and it's just very, very, very interesting. So I'm excited to see how this removes the creative bottleneck on education, because I can prompt with knowledge and get modern, very, very modern creative variation on learning. So and I think that's what learning at scale could start to look like: fast, cheap, and of course at scale.
I couldn't agree more. I was gonna say I'm gonna tie back to our vibe marketing and vibe creative work now,
Vibe
right?
creative, yeah, yeah.
So
That's where it's at, right? So anyway, artists, an incredible episode. I hope everybody you like the multi-dimensional AI drops,
multimodal.
yeah, that we brought to you today. But obviously, our punchline is exciting, always fast. But look out for the new vision models, because this is transformational. Ardis, sign us off.
All right, everybody. Thanks, JC. Until next time. And over the next few days, we're going to drop a lot of episodes around ASU GSV as well. So, keep an eye on that feed. And as always, like or comment on and let us know if you want us to cover anything else. Till next time. Generation AI is part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you're going to like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing weekly, and we've got a wide range of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our shows help higher ed leaders and professionals like you find their next big idea. They feature a selection of the industry's best as your hosts, like Jamie Hunt, Seth Odell, Jenny Lee Fowler, Brian Gross, and many of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform that's helping institutions all over the country create meaningful, personalized, and engaging connections with their prospects and students. Learn more at element451.com.